The sound of Emma Sawyer's scream cut through the afternoon air like a knife, and Wyatt Orland reined his horse to a halt, so fast the stallion reared slightly on its hind legs. He had been riding the perimeter of his ranch when he heard it, a sound of pure terror that made his blood run cold. Without hesitation, he urged his horse toward the cry, his heart pounding, as he crested a small rise and saw her, a young woman thrashing wildly in what looked like solid ground near the creek bed, but was actually one of the treacherous quicksand pits that formed after heavy rains. "Stop moving!" Wyatt shouted as he leaped from his horse, his boots hitting the ground hard. "The more you struggle, the faster you sink." Emma's eyes found his, wide and frantic, her dark hair plastered to her face with sweat and grime. She was already waist deep in the sucking sand, her arms flailing as panic overtook reason. Wyatt could see the terror etched into every line of her face, and he forced himself to stay calm even as his mind raced through possible solutions. He had seen men lost to quicksand before, their bodies never recovered from the hungry earth. "Please," Emma gasped, her voice breaking. "Please help me." "I will," Wyatt promised, his voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "But you have to stop moving. Lean back if you can. Try to spread your weight." He grabbed his lariat from where it hung on his saddle, his fingers working with practiced efficiency, even as his eyes never left the struggling woman. She was sinking slower now, following his instructions, but the sand was still creeping up her ribcage. Time was running out. Wyatt fashioned a loop and swung it once, twice, then let it fly. The rope sailed through the air and landed perfectly around her shoulders. "Arms through," he commanded. "Get your arms through the loop." Emma struggled to comply, her movements sluggish as the sand compressed around her torso, making it hard to breathe. Wyatt could see the effort it took, the way her face contorted with exertion. Finally, she managed to work her arms through, and the loop settled under her armpits. "Hold on tight," Wyatt said, wrapping the other end of the rope around his saddle horn. He made a clicking sound with his tongue, and his well-trained horse began to back up slowly, the rope going taut. Emma cried out as the pressure increased around her chest, but Wyatt kept his voice calm and encouraging. "I know it hurts, but we have to pull you out. Keep holding on." The sand released her with agonizing slowness, fighting to keep its prize. Wyatt's horse strained against the resistance, muscles bunching beneath its dark coat. Inch by inch, Emma rose from the pit, the wet sand making obscene sucking sounds as it lost its grip. When she was finally at the edge, Wyatt ran forward and grabbed her outstretched hand, his strong fingers closing around her wrist as he hauled her onto solid ground. They collapsed together in a heap, both breathing hard. Emma's hand clutched his with a desperate strength that surprised him, her fingers digging into his skin as if she feared the earth might open up and swallow her again. Wyatt could feel her whole body trembling, could hear the ragged sound of her breathing as she fought back sobs of relief and residual terror. "You are safe now," Wyatt said softly, carefully extracting himself from the tangle of rope and limbs. But Emma's hand remained locked around his, her grip unrelenting. "Miss, you are safe, I promise." "Do not let go," Emma whispered, her voice raw. "Please, do not let go." Wyatt looked down at their joined hands, then at her face. Up close, he could see she was younger than he had first thought, probably in her early 20s, with delicate features that were currently covered in mud and sand. Her dress, once a pretty blue calico, was ruined, the fabric heavy with moisture and grime. But her eyes, when they met his, were the clearest gray he had ever seen, like storm clouds right before rain. "I will not let go," Wyatt heard himself promise, even though he knew he should be taking her back to town, getting her cleaned up and returned to wherever she belonged. "I will not let go until you are ready." Emma nodded, a single tear tracking through the dirt on her cheek. They sat there for several long minutes, her hand in his, until her breathing calmed and the trembling subsided. Wyatt found himself studying her profile, the curve of her jaw, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks when she closed her eyes. There was something about her that called to him, something beyond the natural protectiveness any decent man would feel towards someone he had just saved. "What is your name?" Wyatt asked finally, his voice gentle. "Emma," she replied, her voice still shaky but stronger than before. "Emma Sawyer." "Wyatt Orland," he introduced himself. "My ranch is about 2 miles from here. What were you doing out by the creek alone?" Emma's expression clouded and fresh tears welled in her eyes. "I was running," she admitted, "from a stagecoach robbery. They stopped us about 5 miles back. There were 4 of them, masked with guns. They took everything from the passengers, all our money and valuables. One of them, he looked at me in a way that made me afraid. So when they were distracted with the strong box, I ran. I just ran and did not look back." Wyatt's jaw tightened. Stagecoach robberies had been increasing in frequency around Helena, Montana over the past few months. The local sheriff had his hands full, trying to track down the various gangs that preyed on travelers between the mining camps and the growing town. It was September 1878, and with the mines producing steady streams of gold and silver, criminals were drawn to the territory like flies to honey. "The others," Wyatt said urgently. "The other passengers? Did the robbers hurt anyone?" "I do not know," Emma said, guilt flashing across her face. "I should have stayed, should have tried to help, but I was so frightened. I am a coward." "You are not a coward," Wyatt said firmly. "You are alive, and that is what matters. Come on, let me get you back to my ranch. We can send word to the sheriff from there, and you can get cleaned up. Then we will figure out what to do next." He stood and offered her his hand, but Emma still had not released the one she was already holding. Wyatt smiled slightly, a dimple appearing in his left cheek. "You are going to have to let go of one hand if you want me to help you up." Emma flushed, a hint of color returning to her pale cheeks. "I am sorry. I know I am being foolish, but when I was in that sand, sinking, I thought I was going to die, and then you were there and you pulled me out, and I felt like if I let go, something terrible would happen again." "Nothing terrible is going to happen," Wyatt assured her. "I give you my word. Now come on before you catch a chill in those wet clothes." Reluctantly, Emma released his hand, though Wyatt could see the effort it took. He pulled her to her feet, steadying her when her legs threatened to buckle. The ordeal had taken more out of her than she probably realized. Without asking permission, Wyatt scooped her up into his arms, ignoring her startled gasp. "I can walk," Emma protested weakly. "Maybe, but we will get there faster this way," Wyatt replied. He carried her to his horse, a powerful bay gelding named Thunder, and carefully lifted her into the saddle. Emma swayed slightly, and Wyatt swung up behind her, his arms coming around her to grasp the reins. She stiffened at first, then gradually relaxed against him, her body fitting into the curve of his as if they had ridden together 100 times before. The ride to the ranch house was quiet, the only sounds the steady clip of Thunder's hooves and the rustle of wind through the prairie grass. Wyatt was acutely aware of Emma's presence, the weight of her against his chest, the way her hair smelled like sunshine despite the mud and sand. It was an unsettling feeling, this sudden awareness of a woman he had known for less than an hour. Wyatt had been alone for a long time, focused on building his ranch into something substantial, something that would last. He had no time for romantic entanglements, no desire to complicate his life with emotions he did not fully understand. But as Emma's hand crept up to grip his forearm, holding on as she had promised not to let go, Wyatt felt something shift inside him, something he could not name but could not ignore. The Orland Ranch came into view as they crested a gentle hill. It was not the largest spread in the territory, but it was respectable, with a sturdy 2-story house painted white with green shutters, a large barn, several outbuildings, and corrals that currently held about 24 horses. Cattle dotted the fields beyond, grazing peacefully in the late afternoon sun. Wyatt had built this place from nothing over the past 5 years, working himself to exhaustion to turn a dream into reality. "It is beautiful," Emma said softly, her first words since they had started riding. Thank you, Wyatt replied, surprised by how much her approval pleased him. It is home. He guided Thunder to the front porch and dismounted, then reached up to help Emma down. She swayed when her feet hit the ground, and Wyatt kept his hands on her waist, steadying her. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Up close, Wyatt could see flecks of silver in her gray eyes, could count the faint freckles across her nose. She was beautiful, he realized with a start, not in the painted, perfumed way of the saloon girls in town, but in a natural, unaffected way that made his heart beat faster. I must look terrible, Emma said, self-consciously touching her hair. You look like someone who survived something terrifying, Wyatt said honestly. Come inside. I will heat some water so you can wash up. I am afraid I do not have any women's clothing, but I can probably find a clean shirt and some trousers that will do until we can get you something proper from town. Emma followed him into the house, her eyes widening as she took in the interior. The front door opened directly into a large main room that served as both parlor and dining area. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with comfortable-looking chairs arranged before it. The furniture was simple but well made, and the floors were wood, polished to a soft shine. It was clearly a bachelor's home, lacking the feminine touches that made a house a true home, but it was clean and orderly, which spoke well of the man who lived there. Sit, Wyatt instructed, gesturing to one of the chairs. I will get the water heating. He disappeared through a doorway that Emma assumed led to the kitchen. She sank into the chair he had indicated, suddenly exhausted. The fear and adrenaline that had sustained her through the robbery and her flight were draining away, leaving her hollow and shaky. She looked down at her ruined dress, at her hands still caked with drying mud, and felt tears prick her eyes again. Everything she owned had been in the bags on that stagecoach. All her money, her clothes, the letters from her mother that she treasured. Gone. She had been traveling to Helena to take a position as a school teacher, a job arranged by correspondence over the past several months. It was supposed to be a new beginning, a fresh start, after the death of her father left her alone in St. Louis with no family and dwindling resources. Teaching was one of the few respectable occupations available to an unmarried woman of 22, and Emma had been grateful for the opportunity, even if it meant traveling to the rough territory of Montana. Now she had nothing, no money, no possessions, no way to prove who she was or why she had come. The teaching position required her to present herself to the school board within a week of the start of the fall term, which was in 3 days. How could she do that looking like a muddy vagrant? Here! Wyatt's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. He had returned with a steaming basin of water, some clean cloths, and a bar of soap. This will help. There is a bedroom upstairs, first door on the right. You can have some privacy there. I will leave some clean clothes outside the door. Emma took the basin, her fingers brushing his. That strange electric sensation she had felt when he first pulled her from the sand returned, making her breath catch. Wyatt felt it too. She could tell by the way his eyes darkened, the way he held himself very still. Thank you, Emma said quietly, for everything. I do not know what I would have done if you had not come along when you did. I am glad I was there, Wyatt replied. Then more softly, I am very glad. Emma carried the basin upstairs, finding the bedroom easily. It was sparse but comfortable, with a large bed covered in a simple quilt, a dresser, and a washstand. She set the basin down and began the task of cleaning herself up, wincing as she saw the bruises already forming on her torso where the rope had compressed around her chest. It had been necessary to save her life, but it had not been gentle. She washed as best she could, scrubbing away the layers of mud and sand until her skin was pink and clean. Her hair was a disaster, so she unbraided it completely and finger-combed it as smooth as she could manage, then rebraided it in a simple plait down her back. As promised, clean clothes appeared outside the door while she was washing. A man's work shirt in soft blue flannel and a pair of trousers that would need to be rolled up several times to fit her shorter legs. There were even socks, and to her surprise, a pair of moccasins that looked like they might actually fit her feet. Emma dressed quickly, feeling strange in the masculine attire. She had never worn trousers in her life, and the freedom of movement they allowed was both liberating and unsettling. The shirt hung loosely on her frame, the shoulders too broad, but it was clean and warm, and it smelled like soap and something else, something distinctly masculine that she realized must be Wyatt's own scent. When she came back downstairs, she found Wyatt in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot on the large cast iron stove. He looked up when she entered, and his eyes widened slightly. "The clothes fit well enough?" he asked. "Well enough," Emma confirmed. "The moccasins are perfect. Where did you get them?" "A Flathead woman made them for me a few years back," Wyatt explained. "I helped her son when he got thrown from a horse and broke his leg. She insisted on repaying me somehow. I have never been able to wear them. They are too small for me. I am glad they can be of use." He ladled stew into 2 bowls and set them on the small kitchen table, then cut thick slices from a loaf of bread. It was simple fare, but Emma's stomach growled at the sight of it. She realized she had not eaten since early that morning, and the day's ordeals had left her ravenous. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before Wyatt spoke. "Tell me about yourself, Emma Sawyer. What brings you to Montana Territory?" Emma swallowed her mouthful of stew before answering. "I am to be the new school teacher in Helena. Or I was supposed to be. I corresponded with the school board for months, and they offered me the position. I was meant to arrive this week to meet with them and prepare for the fall term." "Was meant to?" Wyatt questioned. "You still can. Helena is only about 10 miles from here. I can take you there tomorrow if you like." "Looking like this." Emma gestured to her borrowed clothes. "With no credentials, no references, nothing to prove I am who I say I am." "Everything was in my trunk on that stagecoach. All my papers, my teaching certificate, the letters from the school board. Without those, I am just a strange woman in men's clothing with an unlikely story." "The school board knows you are coming," Wyatt pointed out. "When you do not arrive as expected, they will inquire, and the sheriff will have a report of the robbery by then. Your story will be corroborated." "Perhaps," Emma said doubtfully. "But even if they believe me, I cannot very well show up to teach dressed like this. I have no money to buy proper clothes, no way to support myself until I receive my first wages. I am completely dependent on the charity of strangers, which is not a position I ever wanted to be in." Wyatt was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "What if you stayed here for a few days?" he suggested. "Just until we can sort things out. I need to ride into Helena anyway to report the robbery and see if anyone has heard about the other passengers. While I am there, I can speak to the school board on your behalf, explain the situation, and I can advance you some money for clothes and necessities. You can pay me back once you start receiving wages." Emma stared at him, torn between gratitude and uncertainty. "I could not possibly impose on you like that. You have already done so much." "It is not an imposition," Wyatt said firmly. "I have plenty of room, and honestly, the company would be welcome. It gets lonely out here sometimes. Besides," he added with a slight smile, "you are still holding my hand, remember? Metaphorically speaking." Despite herself, Emma laughed, the sound surprising them both. It felt good to laugh after the terror of the day, like a release of pressure she had not known she was holding. "You are very kind, Mr. Orland." "Wyatt," he corrected, "if you are going to be staying under my roof, even temporarily, I think we can dispense with formalities." "Wyatt," Emma repeated, testing the name. She liked the sound of it, solid and dependable. "And you must call me Emma." "Emma," Wyatt said, and the way he said her name, with that slight Western drawl that softened the consonants, made something flutter in her chest. They finished their meal, talking about inconsequential things. Emma learned that Wyatt was 27, that he had come to Montana 5 years ago from Wyoming with nothing but a horse, a saddle, and a determination to make something of himself. He had worked odd jobs at first, saving every penny until he had enough to buy his first piece of land. The ranch had grown slowly but steadily, built through hard work and careful management. He raised cattle and horses, selling to the growing population in Helena and to the military forts scattered throughout the territory. In turn, Emma told him about her life in St. Louis, about losing her mother to fever when she was 16, about her father's slow decline after that, the way he had seemed to lose interest in living after his wife died. She spoke of her decision to become a teacher, the way it had given her purpose and direction when everything else in her life felt uncertain. As the evening wore on and the light outside faded to dusk, Wyatt lit lamps throughout the house, casting everything in a warm golden glow. Emma found herself relaxing in a way she had not expected, the events of the day receding slightly as she sat in this comfortable house with this unexpected man. When she yawned for the third time, Wyatt smiled. "You should get some rest," he said. "You have been through an ordeal today. The bedroom upstairs is yours for as long as you need it. I will sleep down here." "I cannot take your bed," Emma protested. "You can, and you will," Wyatt said firmly. "I insist. Besides, the sofa is comfortable enough. I have slept on worse." Too tired to argue further, Emma agreed. She climbed the stairs slowly, her body aching in places she had not known could ache. At the top, she paused and looked back down to where Wyatt stood in the main room, already pulling blankets from a chest. "Wyatt?" she called softly. He looked up. "Yes. Thank you, not just for pulling me out of the quicksand, but for everything after, for making me feel safe." Wyatt's expression softened. "You are welcome, Emma. Sleep well." Emma retreated to the bedroom and closed the door, then stood for a moment with her back against the solid wood. Her heart was beating too fast, her thoughts tangled in confusion. She barely knew this man, and yet she felt drawn to him in a way that defied logic. It was more than gratitude, though she certainly felt that too. It was something deeper, something that had sparked to life the moment his hand closed around hers and pulled her from certain death. She had told him she grabbed his hand and would never let go, and in that moment she had meant it with every fiber of her being. Now, safe in his house, wearing his clothes, eating his food, Emma wondered if perhaps that desperate declaration had been more prophetic than she realized. The next morning, Emma woke to bright sunlight streaming through the window and the smell of coffee wafting up from downstairs. For a moment she was disoriented, unsure where she was, then memory returned in a rush. The robbery, the quicksand, Wyatt. She sat up, noting that her body was stiff and sore but otherwise functional. Her dress from yesterday had been cleaned and hung over a chair to dry, though it was clearly beyond saving, the fabric stained and torn. She dressed in the borrowed clothes again and made her way downstairs, following the scent of coffee and something baking. Wyatt was in the kitchen, pulling a pan of biscuits from the oven. He looked up when she entered, and Emma was struck again by how handsome he was. In the clear morning light, she could see the strong lines of his face, the broad shoulders, the capable hands. He was clean-shaven, his dark hair still slightly damp as if he had recently washed. "Good morning," Wyatt greeted her. "I hope you slept well." "Better than I expected," Emma admitted. "What time is it?" "A little past 7. I am usually up before dawn, but I tried to be quiet so you could rest. Are you hungry?" Emma nodded, and Wyatt set about preparing breakfast. They ate together at the small kitchen table, the morning sun painting everything in shades of gold and amber. It felt strangely domestic, intimate in a way that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow was not. "I'm planning to ride into Helena this morning," Wyatt said as they finished eating. "I will report the robbery to the sheriff and speak to the school board like we discussed. Is there anything specific you need me to tell them?" Emma thought for a moment. "Just that I am alive and safe, and that I will present myself to them as soon as I am able to do so properly. And if they need verification, they can send someone out here to speak with me directly." Wyatt nodded. "That is reasonable. Is there anything else you need from town? Anything I can bring back for you?" "I hate to ask for more," Emma began, but Wyatt cut her off. "You are not asking. I am offering. There is a difference." Emma smiled gratefully. "Then perhaps a dress, something simple and practical, and some undergarments, if that is not too awkward to request." "I will see what I can do," Wyatt promised, though Emma noticed a faint flush creep up his neck at the mention of undergarments. It was endearing, this hint of shyness in an otherwise confident man. "You will be all right here alone? I should be back by mid-afternoon." "I will be fine," Emma assured him. "Unless you have objections, I might do some cleaning while you are gone. It is the least I can do to repay your hospitality." Wyatt looked like he wanted to protest, but instead, he just shrugged. "Do whatever makes you comfortable. Just be careful around the stove if you decide to cook anything. It runs hot." After Wyatt left, riding off on Thunder with a promise to return soon, Emma found herself wandering through the house, learning its rhythms and secrets. It was a good house, solidly built, with evidence of Wyatt's care in every corner. The floors were clean, the furniture well maintained, but there were also signs of neglect in the smaller details. Dust on the higher shelves, windows that could use a good washing, curtains that needed mending. Emma set to work, grateful for something productive to do. She found cleaning supplies in a closet and went through the main room methodically, dusting and sweeping, shaking out rugs and polishing the furniture until it gleamed. She washed the windows, mended the curtains with a needle and thread she found in a sewing kit, and even tackled the kitchen, scrubbing every surface until it shone. As she worked, Emma thought about Wyatt, about the way he had appeared just when she needed him most, about his kindness and generosity. She thought about the way her heart had raced when their hands touched, the way she had felt safe in his arms on the ride back to the ranch. It was too soon to call it love. She barely knew him, but it was something, some seed of possibility that had been planted when he pulled her from the sand and was now taking root in her heart. By the time Emma heard hoofbeats approaching in the early afternoon, the house had been transformed. She had even found time to bake bread, using supplies from Wyatt's well-stocked pantry. The smell of fresh bread filled the house, mingling with the scent of the wildflowers Emma had picked and arranged in a jar on the kitchen table. Wyatt came through the door, carrying several parcels, which he set down on the table before looking around in amazement. "Did you do all this?" he asked, taking in the spotless room, the gleaming windows, the flowers. "I hope you do not mind," Emma said, suddenly worried that she had overstepped. "I just wanted to be useful." "Mind? Emma, this is incredible. The house has not looked this good since I built it." Wyatt shook his head in wonder. "Thank you. You did not have to do all this." "I wanted to," Emma said simply. "Did everything go well in town?" Wyatt nodded, his expression growing serious. The sheriff already knew about the robbery. 2 of the other passengers made it to town yesterday evening and reported it. No one was seriously hurt, thankfully, though everyone lost their possessions. The sheriff has a posse out looking for the bandits, but the trail was already cold. "And the school board?" Emma asked anxiously. "I spoke with the head of the board, a man named George Patterson. He was very concerned when I told him what happened to you. He said to take whatever time you need to recover and get situated. The position is still yours. They will delay the start of classes by a week if necessary." Wyatt picked up one of the parcels. "And I brought you some things. I had to guess at sizes, and I am not sure I got everything right, but the shopkeeper's wife helped." Emma unwrapped the parcels with trembling fingers. Inside was a simple but well-made dress in a soft green fabric, along with a white blouse, a skirt, stockings, and yes, undergarments that looked to be approximately the right size. There was also a hairbrush, some hairpins, and a small bar of lavender soap. It is too much, Emma whispered, but tears were streaming down her cheeks, tears of gratitude and relief. It is exactly right, Wyatt corrected gently. He reached out and wiped away a tear with his thumb, the gesture tender and intimate. Emma, you needed these things. Please do not cry. I am not sad, Emma said, laughing through her tears. I am overwhelmed by your kindness, by everything. I do not know how I will ever repay you. You already have, Wyatt said, gesturing to the transformed house. This, what you did here today, this is more than enough. This is a home now, not just a house. I did not realize how much I was missing that until I walked through the door and saw what you had done. They stood there in the golden afternoon light, Emma's tears drying on her cheeks, Wyatt's hand still cupping her face. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility, until Emma finally broke the silence. I should try these on, she said softly. Make sure they fit. Wyatt dropped his hand and stepped back, nodding. Of course, I will be outside if you need anything. I have evening chores to do. Emma took the parcels upstairs and changed into the new clothes. The dress fit remarkably well, just a little loose in the waist, but nothing that could not be easily altered. She brushed out her hair and pinned it up in a more respectable style, then examined herself in the small mirror above the dresser. She looked like herself again, like Emma Sawyer, school teacher, instead of a half-drowned waif in borrowed clothes. When she came back downstairs and stepped outside to find Wyatt, he was in the barn, forking hay into the stalls. He stopped when he saw her, leaning on the pitchfork as his eyes traveled over her appearance. It fits, Emma said unnecessarily, smoothing down the skirt. You look beautiful, Wyatt said, the words simple and honest. Not that you did not look fine in the other clothes, but this is definitely more suitable for meeting with the school board. Emma blushed, pleased by the compliment. When do you think I should go into town to meet with them? Whenever you feel ready, Wyatt replied. Though if you want my advice, I would wait a few days. Give yourself time to fully recover, to feel more settled. There is no rush. Emma nodded slowly. The truth was, she was in no hurry to leave the ranch. Here in this peaceful place, with this kind man, she felt safer and more content than she had in months. The thought of going into town, of starting her new position, of navigating a world of strangers was daunting. A few more days to gather her strength seemed wise. Over the following days, Emma and Wyatt fell into an easy rhythm. Emma took over the cooking and the household chores, while Wyatt managed the ranch work. They ate breakfast together each morning, discussing their plans for the day, then went their separate ways until evening, when they would share dinner and conversation. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's stories, each other's dreams. Emma learned that Wyatt had come from a large family in Wyoming, that he was the youngest of 5 brothers, and that his desire to prove himself, to build something that was entirely his own, had driven him to leave home and strike out on his own. She learned that he loved horses more than cattle, that his dream was to breed quality stock that would be sought after throughout the territory. She learned that he read voraciously, that the shelves in his bedroom were filled with books on everything from animal husbandry to philosophy. Wyatt learned that Emma had always wanted to teach, that she believed education was the key to making the world better. He learned that she played piano, though she had not touched one in years, and that she had a beautiful singing voice that she was shy about sharing. He learned that she was stronger than she looked, that beneath the proper school teacher exterior was a core of steel forged through loss and hardship. Most importantly, they learned that they enjoyed each other's company, that the hours passed quickly when they were together, and that the silence between them was as comfortable as the conversation. On the 4th day after Emma's arrival, Wyatt was working with a young horse in the corral when Emma came out to watch. She climbed up on the fence and sat on the top rail, her skirts tucked around her legs, completely absorbed in Wyatt's patient handling of the skittish animal. He was gentling it, speaking in low, soothing tones, his movements slow and deliberate. Emma was fascinated by the care he took, the way he never forced the horse but instead waited for it to come to him on its own terms. "You are good at that," Emma called out when Wyatt finally led the horse over to where she sat. "Patience is the key," Wyatt replied, stroking the horse's neck. "You cannot rush trust. It has to be earned, built slowly over time." Emma thought about how that applied to more than just horses. She thought about how, over the past few days, her trust in Wyatt had grown, how she had gone from a terrified stranger clinging to his hand to someone who felt genuinely at ease in his presence. And she thought about how her feelings had grown too, deepening from gratitude into something warmer, something that made her heart beat faster whenever he was near. "Do you want to try?" Wyatt asked, gesturing to the horse. "Try what?" Emma asked, startled. "Petting him. He is calm now. He will not spook if you are gentle." Emma climbed down from the fence carefully and approached the horse slowly, extending her hand palm up as Wyatt had taught her. The horse snuffed at her fingers, then allowed her to stroke his nose. His coat was velvet soft, his eyes large and liquid. "He is beautiful," Emma murmured. "He is yours if you want him," Wyatt said. Emma turned to stare at him. "What?" "Wyatt, I cannot accept a horse. That is far too generous." "You are going to be living in Helena," Wyatt pointed out. "You will need transportation, and I was planning to sell him anyway. Consider it part of my investment in education." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I would feel better knowing you had a reliable horse, better than relying on stagecoaches." Emma felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry more easily around Wyatt than she had in years, but they were good tears. Tears of emotion rather than pain. "I do not know what to say." "Say yes," Wyatt suggested. "Yes," Emma whispered. "Thank you. I will take excellent care of him." "I know you will." Wyatt handed her the lead rope. "Come on, I will teach you how to groom him properly." They spent the rest of the afternoon in the barn, Wyatt showing Emma the ins and outs of horse care. He stood behind her, his hands over hers, guiding her through the motions of brushing the horse's coat, picking out his hooves, checking his teeth. Emma was intensely aware of Wyatt's proximity, the solid warmth of him at her back, the scent of leather and soap that clung to him. When he spoke, his breath stirred the hair near her ear, sending shivers down her spine. "You are a natural," Wyatt said finally, stepping back. "He trusts you already. That is a good sign." Emma turned to face him, the horse's lead rope still in her hand. They were standing very close in the narrow stall, close enough that Emma could see the gold flecks in Wyatt's brown eyes, close enough to count the faint lines at the corners of his mouth. The air between them seemed to shimmer with possibility. "Wyatt," Emma began, not sure what she wanted to say, but feeling like something needed to be said. "Emma," Wyatt replied, his voice low and rough, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Wyatt took a breath, as if gathering courage. "These past few days with you here, they have been some of the best I have had since I came to Montana. I wake up looking forward to seeing you at breakfast. I find myself hurrying through my work so I can get back to the house, back to you. And I know you are meant to go to Helena soon, to start your teaching position, but the thought of you leaving, of this house being empty again, it bothers me more than it should." Emma's heart was pounding so hard she was sure Wyatt could hear it. "It bothers me too," she admitted. "The thought of leaving. I have only been here 4 days, but it feels like longer. It feels like home." "What if it could be home?" Wyatt asked. "What if you did not have to leave?" "I have to take the teaching position," Emma said, though her voice was uncertain. "It is why I came to Montana. It is what I trained for." "I know," Wyatt said quickly, "and I am not asking you to give that up. Helena is only 10 miles from here. You could live here and ride into town for teaching. Or," he hesitated, then pressed on, "or you could stay here for different reasons." "Better reasons." "What reasons?" Emma asked, though she thought she knew, hoped she knew. Wyatt reached out and took her hand, the same hand he had grasped when pulling her from the quicksand. Because I am falling in love with you, Emma Sawyer. I know it is too soon. I know we barely know each other, but I cannot deny what I feel. From the moment I saw you in that sand, something inside me recognized you, and every moment since has only confirmed it. I think you feel it too. Am I wrong? Emma's breath caught. She had known her feelings were growing, had felt the pull between them. But hearing Wyatt put it into words, hearing him declare his love so plainly, made it real in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. You are not wrong, Emma said softly. I feel it too. I have felt it since you pulled me out and I grabbed your hand. I told you I would never let go, and I meant it. But Wyatt, this is happening so fast. What if we are caught up in the drama of it all? What if what we feel is not real? It is real, Wyatt said with absolute certainty. I have lived 27 years, Emma. I have met a lot of people, known a lot of women. I have never felt anything like this. This is not gratitude or excitement or any other temporary emotion. This is something deeper, something permanent. Emma wanted to believe him. More than that, she did believe him because she felt the same way. Against all logic and reason, she had fallen in love with Wyatt Orland in 4 short days. But that did not mean she was ready to make rash decisions. What are you asking me, Wyatt? Emma asked carefully. What do you want? I want you to stay, Wyatt said simply. I want to court you properly, the way you deserve. I want time for us to be sure, to build something real. And then if you are willing, if your feelings match mine, I want to marry you. I want you to be my wife, to share this ranch and this life with me. But I will not rush you. We can take as much time as you need. Emma felt tears spill over, but she was smiling through them. I want that too, she said. All of it. But I also want to teach Wyatt. It is important to me. I do not want to give up my own dreams. And I would never ask you to, Wyatt assured her. We will make it work. Whatever you need, whatever you want, we will find a way. Together. Together, Emma repeated, testing the word. She liked the sound of it, the promise it held. Wyatt cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs wiping away her tears. May I kiss you, Emma? Emma nodded, her heart in her throat. Wyatt lowered his head slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to, but Emma had no intention of pulling away. When his lips met hers, gentle and questioning, Emma felt something click into place inside her, like a key turning in a lock. This was right. This was where she was meant to be. The kiss deepened, Wyatt's arms coming around her to pull her close. Emma melted into him, her hands clutching the fabric of his shirt, her whole body singing with the rightness of being in his arms. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wyatt rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he said again. I love you too, Emma replied, the words feeling both new and ancient on her tongue. They stood there in the barn, wrapped in each other's arms, as the sun sank lower in the sky and the world outside faded away. Emma thought about how just days ago she had been sinking into the earth, certain she was going to die. Now she was here, held safe in Wyatt's embrace, with a future stretching before them, full of possibility and promise. She had grabbed his hand when he pulled her out, and true to her word, she had never let go. She never would. The following week passed in a blur of happiness. Wyatt rode into Helena with Emma to meet formally with the school board, and Emma was officially confirmed in her position as the new school teacher. Classes would begin in another week, giving her time to prepare. The school board was sympathetic to her situation and impressed by her determination to fulfill her commitment despite the robbery and her losses. While in town, Wyatt also arranged for Emma to have an account at the general store, insisting that she charge anything she needed to him until she received her first wages. Emma protested, but Wyatt was firm. You are going to be my wife, he said, using the words publicly for the first time. Let me take care of you." The words sent a thrill through Emma. They had not announced an engagement yet, had not set a date, but the intention was there, solid and real. Emma found she liked the idea of being Wyatt's wife, liked it more than she had ever imagined she could. They bought Emma more clothes suitable for teaching, including a warm cloak for the approaching winter. They purchased books and supplies for the classroom. They even stopped at the small office that served as the town's newspaper and land office, where Wyatt introduced Emma to several of his friends and neighbors. Word spread quickly that Wyatt Orland had found himself a woman, and Emma found herself on the receiving end of many curious but friendly looks. On the ride back to the ranch, Emma said, "Everyone is going to be talking about us." "Let them talk," Wyatt replied, unconcerned. "We have nothing to hide. I am courting you with the intention of marrying you. That is respectable enough. But I am living under your roof unchaperoned," Emma pointed out. "Some people will find that scandalous." "Some people need to mind their own business," Wyatt said firmly. "Emma, I am not going to apologize for the circumstances that brought us together or for offering you shelter when you needed it. Anyone who wants to make something improper out of that can take it up with me directly." Emma smiled, warmed by his protectiveness. "You are very fierce, Mr. Orland." "Only when it comes to things that matter," Wyatt replied. "And you, Emma Sawyer, matter very much." When they arrived back at the ranch, they found a visitor waiting. A tall Native American man stood near the corral, examining Wyatt's horses with an expert eye. He turned when he heard them approach, raising a hand in greeting. "Running Elk," Wyatt called, dismounting quickly and clasping the man's forearm in a gesture of friendship. "It is good to see you. What brings you out this way?" "I heard rumors in town that you had a woman staying with you," Running Elk replied in perfect, unaccented English. "I had to see for myself if the great bachelor Wyatt Orland had finally been caught." Wyatt laughed and turned to help Emma down from her horse. "Running Elk, this is Emma Sawyer. Emma, Running Elk is a friend and one of the best horse traders in Montana Territory." Emma extended her hand, and Running Elk shook it with a smile. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Miss Sawyer. Wyatt is a good man, though I am sure you have already discovered that." "I have," Emma agreed. "It is nice to meet you as well." They invited Running Elk to stay for dinner, and Emma found herself enjoying the easy camaraderie between the two men. Running Elk, she learned, was from the Flathead Reservation, but traveled widely for his horse trading business. He and Wyatt had met years ago and had developed a mutual respect that had grown into genuine friendship. Over the meal, Running Elk told stories of his travels, describing the changes sweeping through the territory as more settlers arrived and the old ways faded. There was a note of sadness in his voice when he spoke of the reservation, of the way his people were being confined and controlled, but also a pragmatic acceptance that this was the world they now lived in. "Wyatt tells me you are to be the new school teacher in Helena," Running Elk said to Emma. "That is good. Education is important. My children will be among your students." "Your children?" Emma asked, surprised. "2 sons and a daughter," Running Elk confirmed. "They live with my wife's family on the reservation, but come into Helena for schooling. The school on the reservation is not very good. I want them to have better." "I will do my best for them," Emma promised. "All children deserve a good education." Running Elk nodded approvingly. "Wyatt has chosen well," he said. "You will be a good match." After Running Elk left, Emma and Wyatt sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. Emma leaned against Wyatt's shoulder, feeling peaceful and content. "Your friend seems nice," Emma said. "How did you two meet?" "He sold me my first breeding mare," Wyatt explained. "I did not have much money at the time, and he could have gotten a much better price from someone else, but he sold her to me anyway because he said he could see I would treat her well. He was right. That mare is the foundation of my current herd." "He seems to have a good sense about people," Emma observed. "He does," Wyatt agreed. "And he likes you, which I am glad of. His good opinion means a lot to me." They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Wyatt spoke again. Emma, I have been thinking about the future, about us. I know we said we would take our time, but I feel like every day I am more certain. I do not need months or years to know that you are the woman I want to spend my life with. What would you say to a short engagement? We could be married before winter sets in, before the teaching year gets too demanding. Emma's heart leaped at the suggestion. How short are we talking? A month? Wyatt suggested. That would give us time to do things properly, to publish the banns, to let you get settled in your teaching position so no one can say you gave it up because of me. We could have a small ceremony, just friends and neighbors. Nothing fancy, but real and binding. Emma turned to look at him, searching his face in the starlight. Are you sure? Wyatt, you are not just proposing because you feel obligated to protect my reputation. I am proposing because I love you and I want you to be my wife, Wyatt said firmly. Your reputation is a consideration, yes, but it is not the driving force. The driving force is that I have found the woman I want to build a life with, and I see no reason to wait when we are both certain. Emma thought about it, about the whirlwind nature of their relationship, about how fast everything was moving. By all rights, she should be cautious, should insist on a longer courtship. But when she examined her feelings honestly, she could not find any doubt. She loved Wyatt. She wanted to marry him. The speed did not matter when the destination was so clear. Yes, Emma said, a smile breaking across her face. Yes, I will marry you, Wyatt Orland. In a month, in a week. Tomorrow, if you want. Yes. Wyatt let out a whoop of joy and swept Emma into his arms, spinning her around until she was laughing and breathless. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, a kiss full of promise and passion and pure happiness. We should go into town tomorrow and speak to the minister, Wyatt said when they finally broke apart. Make it official, and we should let the school board know, so there is no confusion about your situation. I will need a wedding dress, Emma said, her mind already racing ahead to all the practical considerations. We will get you the finest dress in Helena, Wyatt promised. Or if you prefer, we can send to Virginia City or even San Francisco for something special. Nothing too fancy, Emma said. I am a school teacher, not a society lady. Something simple and pretty will be perfect. They stayed up late that night, making plans, talking about the future they would build together. Wyatt wanted to expand the ranch, to build on the success he had already achieved. Emma wanted to make a difference in her students' lives, to give them the tools they needed to succeed. They talked about children of their own someday, about the family they would create. How many children do you want? Wyatt asked. I never really thought about a specific number, Emma admitted, but I come from a family of 3, and that seemed to work well. You come from 5. What do you think? I think we will take what God gives us and be grateful, Wyatt said. Whether that is 1 or 10, Emma laughed. Let us hope it is somewhere in between. The next month was a flurry of activity. Emma started her teaching position, riding into Helena each day on the horse Wyatt had given her, which she had named Sunshine for his bright golden coat. The school was a simple one-room building with students ranging in age from 6 to 14. Emma threw herself into the work, determined to prove herself as a competent teacher. Among her students were Running Elk's 3 children, Joseph, 12, and a serious boy who excelled at mathematics, Lily, 10, a bright girl with a gift for languages, and Thomas, 8, who loved storytelling. Emma found them delightful to teach, and they quickly became some of her favorite students. In the evenings, Emma returned to the ranch, to Wyatt and the home they were creating together. They chose a date for the wedding, the second Saturday in October, when the fall colors would be at their peak. They met with the minister, a jovial man named Reverend Walsh, who approved of their union and agreed to perform the ceremony. Emma's wedding dress was made by a seamstress in Helena, a widow named Mrs. Chin, who had a reputation for beautiful work. The dress was simple white muslin with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs, fitted at the waist, and falling in soft folds to the floor. When Emma tried it on for the final fitting, Mrs. Chin smiled with satisfaction. "You look beautiful, Miss Sawyer. Mr. Orland is a lucky man." "I am the lucky one," Emma replied, meaning it with all her heart. The week before the wedding, Emma moved her few possessions from the bedroom where she had been staying to the room that would be theirs after they were married. Wyatt was scrupulously respectful of her virtue, never doing more than kissing her good night, but Emma could feel the tension building between them, the anticipation of what would come after they were wed. The night before the wedding, Emma stayed in town with Mrs. Chen, as was proper. It felt strange to be away from the ranch, from Wyatt, even for one night. She had grown so accustomed to his presence, to the rhythms of their life together, that being apart felt wrong somehow. Mrs. Chen seemed to sense her restlessness. "You miss him already," she said with a knowing smile. "That is a good sign. It means you are marrying for the right reasons." "Did you?" Emma asked. "Marry for the right reasons, I mean?" "I did," Mrs. Chen said softly. "My husband and I had an arranged marriage, which was the custom in China where we were both born. But we grew to love each other deeply. When he died 3 years ago, I thought I would die too. But I survived, and I have made a life here. Love is worth the pain of loss, Miss Sawyer. Never doubt that." Emma thought about Mrs. Chen's words as she lay in bed that night, unable to sleep despite her exhaustion. She thought about the quicksand that had nearly claimed her life, about how different things would be if Wyatt had not come along when he did. She thought about fate and chance and the mysterious ways life could change in an instant. Tomorrow she would marry Wyatt Orland. Tomorrow she would become Emma Orland. Tomorrow her new life would truly begin. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the sky a brilliant blue unmarred by clouds. Emma dressed carefully, her hands steady despite her nervousness. Mrs. Chen helped her with her hair, pinning it up in an elegant style and weaving in small white flowers that matched the lace on her dress. When Emma arrived at the church, she found it filled with people. Wyatt had more friends and neighbors than she had realized, and they had all turned out to witness the wedding. Emma saw Running Elk and his family, saw several of her students and their parents, saw townspeople she recognized from the general store and the boarding house. All of them were smiling, clearly happy for the couple, and then Emma saw Wyatt, standing at the altar with Reverend Walsh, and everything else faded away. He was wearing a new suit, his dark hair neatly combed, his expression both nervous and joyful. When he saw Emma walking down the aisle toward him, his face lit up with such pure love that Emma felt tears sting her eyes. She had no one to give her away, her father being long dead, and no other family nearby. But somehow it felt right to walk to Wyatt on her own, to come to him as an equal, a partner. When she reached the altar, Wyatt took her hand, and Emma felt that same electric connection she had felt the first time he touched her, pulling her from the sand. Reverend Walsh began the ceremony, his voice ringing out in the small church. Emma barely heard the words, too focused on Wyatt, on the feel of his hand in hers, on the weight of the moment. When it came time for the vows, Wyatt spoke clearly, his voice steady and sure. "I, Wyatt Orland, take you, Emma Sawyer, to be my wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, protect you, and cherish you from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death parts us." Emma repeated the vows, her own voice strong despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. "I, Emma Sawyer, take you, Wyatt Orland, to be my wedded husband. I promise to love you, honor you, cherish you, and stand by your side, from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death parts us. By the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Walsh declared. "Wyatt, you may kiss your bride." Wyatt did not need to be told twice. He pulled Emma into his arms and kissed her with a passion that made several people in the congregation laugh and applaud. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emma was laughing too, giddy with happiness. They walked back down the aisle together as husband and wife, hand in hand, exactly as Emma had promised that first day. She had grabbed his hand, and she had never let go. Now she never would. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and food provided by various neighbors who had insisted on contributing. There was roasted meat and fresh bread, vegetables from people's gardens, and even a wedding cake that Mrs. Chin had baked as her gift to the couple. Musicians played fiddles and guitars, and people danced as the sun sank lower in the sky. Emma danced with Wyatt, with Running Elk, with several of her students' fathers. She laughed and talked and accepted congratulations from what felt like half of Helena. But through it all, she was always aware of Wyatt, of where he was, of the way his eyes followed her around the yard. The look in those eyes promised things that made Emma's cheeks heat and her heart race. As the evening grew late and guests began to depart, Emma found herself growing nervous for a different reason. She was a virgin, with only the vaguest understanding of what would happen on her wedding night. Her mother had died before having the chance to explain such things, and Emma had been too embarrassed to ask anyone else. She trusted Wyatt, loved him, but the unknown was still frightening. Finally, the last guest left, and Wyatt and Emma were alone. They stood in the yard, the remains of the celebration scattered around them, and looked at each other in the moonlight. "Are you tired?" Wyatt asked gently. "It has been a long day. If you need to rest, we can wait." Emma shook her head. "I am nervous," she admitted, "but I do not want to wait. I am your wife now. I want to be your wife in every way." Wyatt cupped her face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle. "I will be careful with you," he promised. "I will make it good for you. Do you trust me?" "With my life," Emma replied, and it was the simple truth. Wyatt swept her into his arms and carried her into the house, up the stairs to the bedroom that was now theirs. He set her down gently and lit the lamp on the bedside table, then turned to face her. "I love you, Emma Orland," he said, using her new name for the first time. "I love you too, Wyatt Orland," Emma replied. What followed was tender and sweet, and yes, occasionally awkward, as first times often are. But Wyatt was patient and gentle, talking Emma through her nervousness, showing her with his hands and his mouth and his body how much he loved her. When the initial pain passed and Emma began to understand the pleasure that could be found in the joining of two bodies, she clung to Wyatt with wonder and gratitude. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the moonlight streaming through the window, Emma's head on Wyatt's chest, his arms around her. Emma felt changed, marked by the experience in a way that was both physical and spiritual. She was Wyatt's wife now, in every sense of the word. They were bound together in a way that could never be undone. "Are you all right?" Wyatt asked, his voice rumbling in his chest beneath her ear. "I am better than all right," Emma said. "I am happy, happier than I knew it was possible to be." "Good," Wyatt said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Because you are stuck with me now, Mrs. Orland." "I think I can live with that," Emma replied, smiling in the darkness. The years that followed were not without challenges. The first winter was harsh, with snowstorms that kept Emma home from school for days at a time. The ranch faced setbacks when a late spring storm killed several calves. There were lean times and abundant times, sickness and health, exactly as they had promised in their vows. But through it all, Emma and Wyatt faced everything together. Their love, which had sparked to life in a moment of crisis, grew deeper and stronger with each passing season. They learned each other's rhythms, each other's moods. They learned how to fight fairly and how to forgive quickly. They learned how to be partners in the truest sense of the word. Emma continued teaching, becoming beloved by her students and respected by their parents. She implemented new teaching methods, started a small library in the school, and fought successfully for better resources from the territorial government. She made a difference, just as she had always dreamed of doing. Wyatt's ranch prospered. He became known throughout Montana Territory for the quality of his horses, and buyers came from as far as Wyoming and Idaho to purchase his stock. He expanded slowly but steadily, buying additional land when he could afford it, always with an eye toward the future. In the spring of 1880, Emma discovered she was pregnant. The news filled both of them with joy and terror in equal measure. Emma had seen women die in childbirth, knew the risks involved. But she also wanted children desperately, wanted to build a family with Wyatt. The pregnancy was difficult. Emma was sick for the first 3 months, barely able to keep food down. Wyatt hovered over her constantly, worried and protective. But as she entered her second trimester, the sickness passed and Emma bloomed. She continued teaching until her 6th month, when the school board gently but firmly insisted she take a leave of absence. Their son was born in November 1880. During a snowstorm that kept the doctor from reaching the ranch, Wyatt delivered his own son with the help of Mrs. Chin, who had ridden out earlier in the day, sensing the baby would come soon. It was a long, difficult labor, but when Wyatt finally placed the squalling infant in Emma's arms, every moment of pain was forgotten. "What should we name him?" Emma asked, gazing down at the tiny red face, the shock of dark hair. "William," Wyatt said immediately, "after your father." Emma looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "You remembered." "Of course I remembered," Wyatt said, kissing her forehead. "William Orland. Does that sound good to you?" "It sounds perfect," Emma agreed. William was a healthy, happy baby who grew into a curious, energetic toddler. He had his father's dark coloring and his mother's gray eyes, and he was the light of both their lives. Emma took a year off from teaching to care for him, but by the time William was 18 months old, she was ready to return to the classroom. Mrs. Chen, whose own children were grown, agreed to care for William during the day, and the arrangement worked well for everyone. 2 years after William's birth, Emma became pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier, and their daughter was born in the summer of 1883. They named her Grace, and she was a sweet, placid baby who seemed content to observe the world with wide, wondering eyes. Where William was all energy and motion, Grace was calm and thoughtful, even as an infant. The ranch continued to grow, and Wyatt and Emma prospered. They added on to the house, building a proper parlor and expanding the bedrooms to accommodate their growing family. They hired help for the ranch work, a young man named Thomas who had worked for Wyatt on and off for years and was now ready to take on a permanent position. In 1885, Emma became pregnant for a third time. This pregnancy was unexpected, coming when she was 31 and had assumed her childbearing days might be behind her. But this baby was as determined to be born as his or her siblings had been. Another daughter arrived in the spring of 1886, a tiny, fierce thing with a powerful set of lungs. They named her Hope, and she lived up to her name, bringing joy and laughter to the household with her spirited personality. Through all of this, Emma and Wyatt's love never wavered. They still sat together on the porch in the evenings when the weather was fine, still talked about their days, their dreams, their hopes for the future. They still reached for each other in the night, still found comfort and passion in each other's arms. In 1890, when Emma was 36 and Wyatt was 43, they celebrated their 12th wedding anniversary with a party at the ranch. All their friends and neighbors came, including Running Elk and his family, Mrs. Chen, and many of Emma's former students, now grown with families of their own. As Emma looked around at the gathering, at the home she and Wyatt had built, at their 3 beautiful children playing with the other youngsters, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her life had not turned out the way she had planned when she boarded that stagecoach in St. Louis so many years ago. It had turned out better. She found Wyatt standing near the corral, talking with Thomas about a horse. Emma slipped her hand into his, and Wyatt squeezed it, that familiar gesture that still sent warmth through her. "What are you thinking about?" Wyatt asked, reading her expression. "About the day we met," Emma said. "About how I was sinking and you pulled me out, and I grabbed your hand and never let go." "Best thing that ever happened to me," Wyatt said, turning to pull her into his arms. "That day, finding you. I did not know it then, but my whole life was leading up to that moment. Mine too, Emma agreed. Everything I lost, everything I went through, it was all to bring me to that creek bed, to that moment when you appeared and saved my life. We saved each other, Wyatt corrected. You saved me from a lonely existence. You made this house a home. You gave me a family, a purpose beyond just work and survival. You saved me, Emma. Emma kissed him, long and deep, not caring who might see. After 12 years of marriage, they had earned the right to public displays of affection. When they broke apart, both were smiling. Come on, Wyatt said, taking her hand and leading her back toward the party. Our guests will wonder where we went. Let them wonder, Emma said, but she followed him anyway, her hand in his. As the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Emma looked at her life and found it good. She had a husband who loved her, children who were healthy and happy, work that fulfilled her, and a home that welcomed all who entered. She had everything she had ever wanted, and so much more than she had dared to dream. The years continued to pass, bringing changes as they always do. William grew into a fine young man who shared his father's love of horses and his mother's quick mind. He took over more and more of the ranch work, eventually becoming Wyatt's partner in truth as well as in name. Grace proved to have a gift for music, and Emma scraped together the money to buy a piano and hire a teacher from Helena to give her lessons. Hope, true to her spirited nature, announced at 16 that she wanted to become a teacher like her mother, and Emma could not have been more proud. In 1898, when Emma was 44 and Wyatt was 51, they became grandparents for the first time. William had married a sweet girl named Margaret, and they had a son they named Wyatt, after his grandfather. Holding her grandson for the first time, Emma felt the circle of life completing itself. She was no longer the young woman who had been pulled from the quicksand. She was a grandmother, a matriarch, a woman who had lived and loved and built a legacy. Wyatt, watching Emma with their grandson, felt his heart swell with love for this woman who had changed his life so profoundly. She was older now, her dark hair threaded with silver, her face lined with the marks of time and experience. But to Wyatt, she was as beautiful as she had been that first day, when he had pulled her from the sand and she had grabbed his hand with desperate strength. "What are you thinking about?" Emma asked, noticing his gaze. "About how lucky I am," Wyatt replied. "About how my whole life changed in a single moment, and I have never regretted a second of it." Emma smiled, that same smile that had captivated him all those years ago. "Neither have I," she said. "Not one single second." As the new century approached, Emma and Wyatt began to slow down. Wyatt handed over more responsibility for the ranch to William, content to take an advisory role. Emma retired from teaching, though she continued to tutor students privately and remained active in the community. They spent more time together, just the two of them, rediscovering each other after years of being pulled in so many different directions. They took trips, something they had never had time for before. They visited San Francisco and marveled at the modern city. They traveled to Yellowstone National Park and stood in awe before the geysers and hot springs. They even made a trip back to St. Louis, where Emma showed Wyatt where she had grown up, introducing him to the ghosts of her past. But always, they returned to the ranch, to Montana, to the place where their story had begun. This was home, would always be home, no matter where else they might go. In 1905, when Emma was 51 and Wyatt was 58, they celebrated their 27th wedding anniversary. Their children threw them a party, and the whole town seemed to turn out. People spoke of the Orlands with respect and affection, this couple who had built something lasting in the wilderness, who had raised a family and contributed to the community in countless ways. As Emma and Wyatt danced together in the barn that had been decorated for the occasion, Emma laid her head on Wyatt's chest and listened to the steady beat of his heart. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Emma asked. "When I was in the quicksand?" "I said a lot of things," Wyatt replied. "Which part do you mean?" "You told me to stop moving, to lean back, to trust you." "And I did." I trusted you with my life before I even knew your name, and I have trusted you every day since. And I have never betrayed that trust, Wyatt said seriously. I never will, Emma, not until my last breath. I know, Emma said simply. That is why I never let go. They danced on into the night, surrounded by family and friends, by love and laughter. Their children danced with their spouses, their grandchildren played in the corners, and the future stretched out before them, bright with promise. The years that followed brought more grandchildren, 8 in total. They brought joy and sorrow, triumph and setback, all the complicated messiness of a life fully lived. Emma's health began to fail in her 60s, her heart weakening with age. Wyatt, terrified of losing her, hovered constantly, and Emma bore his attention with patient amusement. I am not going anywhere, she told him repeatedly. I grabbed your hand, remember? I am not letting go. And she did not. Emma lived to be 74 years old, long enough to see her oldest grandson marry, long enough to hold her first great-grandchild. She died peacefully in her sleep in the spring of 1922, with Wyatt beside her in the bed they had shared for 44 years. Wyatt held her hand as she drew her last breath, tears streaming down his weathered face. I love you, Emma, he whispered. I love you, and I will see you again. Wyatt lived only 18 months after Emma's death. His children said he died of a broken heart, and perhaps they were right. He had built a good life, a full life, but Emma had been the center of it. Without her, he was unmoored, adrift. When he died in the fall of 1923, at the age of 76, his last word was her name. They buried Wyatt next to Emma on a hillside overlooking the ranch, under a pair of cottonwood trees that Wyatt had planted on their first anniversary. The headstone was simple, just their names and dates, and a single inscription. He pulled her from the sand. She grabbed his hand. Together forever. Their children continued to run the ranch, and their grandchildren after them. The Orland name became synonymous with quality horses and fair dealing throughout Montana. The story of Wyatt and Emma, of how they met and fell in love, became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. In Helena, the school that Emma had taught in for so many years was renamed in her honor. The Emma Sawyer Orland Elementary School stood as a testament to her dedication to education, to her belief that every child deserved the chance to learn and grow. And on the ranch, in the house that Wyatt had built and Emma had made a home, her great-great-grandchildren still played, still learned, still loved. The legacy that began with a young woman sinking into quicksand and a young man who refused to let her die had blossomed into something beautiful and lasting. The story of Wyatt and Emma Orland was proof that love could spring from the most unlikely circumstances, that a single moment of courage and compassion could ripple outward through generations. It was proof that when you find the right person, when you grab hold and refuse to let go, miracles can happen. And perhaps most importantly, it was proof that the truest love is not found in grand gestures or perfect circumstances, but in the daily choice to honor your commitments, to stand by your partner through all of life's challenges, to build something together that is greater than the sum of its parts. Wyatt pulled Emma from the sinking sand just in time. She grabbed his hand and never let go. And in that simple act of desperate trust, a love story was born that would echo through the ages, a testament to the power of connection, of faith, of two souls recognizing each other and choosing again and again to stay together. Their story began in crisis and ended in peace, spanning decades of joy and sorrow, triumph and loss, always anchored by the unshakable bond between them. It was a love story for the ages, set against the backdrop of the Wild West, as timeless and enduring as the Montana mountains themselves. And though Wyatt and Emma had long since passed from this world, their love lived on in the family they created, in the legacy they built, in the example they set for all who came after. They had promised to love each other until death parted them, and they had kept that promise with every breath, every heartbeat, every day of their long and happy lives together. In the end, that was all that mattered. Not the quicksand, or the robbery, or any of the obstacles they had faced. What mattered was the love, the commitment, the choice they made every single day to hold on to each other and never let go. That was the real miracle, the real magic. And it was a magic that would never fade as long as their story continued to be told.